Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for listening, and welcome back to another episode of the Business Owners Freedom Formula Show, where we chat with inspiring entrepreneurs and dig into their highs, lows, and everything in between of their business building journey and learn about how they've been able to achieve ultimate freedom. In today's episode number 11, we have another great guest with us here today. But before we get started, just a quick reminder that you can get all the show notes by going to our website, paulmaskill.com. And if you're looking to mastermind with like-minded business owners who are also listening, jump into our free Facebook group at bizfreedomformula.com. And did I mention that we keep all of our shows real, authentic, and record in video as well with no edits? So if video is your thing, you can always check us out on Facebook and YouTube as well. So we're going to dive into our next interview right now. Don Hutcheson is a lifelong entrepreneur, inventor, author, and coach. He hosts the podcast, Discover Your Talent, Do What You Love, which he created to help you find your true talents and use them to build a career of success, satisfaction, and freedom. He's never had a boss and has created 6 innovative companies in advertising, publishing, coaching, and career planning, and now on the internet for over 35 years. So without further ado, that is Don Hutcheson from Discover Your Talent. Welcome, Don. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm glad to connect with you again. How have you been?
Been doing well, hanging out in Raleigh, North Carolina. I believe that's not too far from you. What about you?
No, we're enjoying Charleston. I'm an Atlanta native, but we moved down here about 3 years ago, and we just love the ocean and the flora and fauna down here, nice people, so it's really delightful.
I will take Charleston over Atlanta. No offense to anybody in Atlanta, but I do not like driving through your traffic, so I'll go to Charleston instead.
I got tired of it too. So, yeah, Raleigh's a great place, by the way.
It is. It's a fun place. We get all the seasons, and summers get a little hot, but I'm from Michigan originally, so I do not miss those winters. So we're going to jump in here. Everybody's busy, and I know you got a lot of stuff on the agenda as always, but give our listeners a little bit more background into how you got started on this whole entrepreneurial journey. Creating 6 companies and never having a boss is pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. It's been an interesting journey. It got started on a twist of fate or some basic intuition. I was at Emory University and I got drafted and I went into the Army for 3 years where I got to study Russian and be a Russian linguist for a while. And when I got back and finished my degree, I had a really fine job lined up to be a teacher in a private school. You know, I wasn't particularly interested in business. And so that was all set to go. And a few months before I was to start, a good friend of mine had this brainstorm for an original magazine. It was a recreational outdoor cultural magazine. He was working at Delta and he said, "Hey, why don't you join me?" Terribly underfunded, a brilliant idea, but terribly underfunded. I thought about it for a while and I said yes. So, yeah, I know. It was amazing. If you looked at it on the surface, it was a WTF moment, you know. It's like, Don, what are you thinking? You had this cushy job. You can go ahead and get your PhD. Best decision I ever made.
Awesome.
Never had a boss, and I learned from the ground up with that. It's still going on today. Some, Brown's Guides, and I learned all about the basics of business through just starting in a startup and having to read the books. I never took the first business course before that. I was always in the yeah, isn't that funny? But I learned hands-on, and so that got me going. And from there, I just catapulted and stayed there about 8 years, and then moved on into the advertising business and learned that from the ground up. I guess I'm a born student and had some real success there, and then moved on into some other businesses. So the start was, I guess you could say, serendipity, but also just by the grace of the Great Spirit, trusting my instincts.
That is, I think that's probably the key takeaway there is trusting your instincts. When you really trust that gut feeling, normally it is right. So throughout those 35 years of that journey, I'm sure there was plenty of times where you had that entrepreneurial moment where you went from a really, really high to a really, really low. Give us our listeners a little bit insight into maybe a time or two where you were about to throw in the towel and kind of persevered through that to keep on that entrepreneurial journey.
Well, after building the second company, Hutcheson-Find, with a brilliant partner in Virgil Schutze and 2 other creative whiz bangs, we built that for about 9 years, and it did very, very well. And we ended up selling it to a big international firm. And I had an idea about the career planning space. And I won't go into all the details, but I researched it for a couple of years and thought there was room for an innovation. And I hooked up with another brilliant partner, partners are key, a brilliant psychologist, and we developed a career planning model. And it was very, very effective, still going on today. But the low was, after putting all this capital, lots, and sweat equity, and there were lots of brilliant people involved, we got hit by the dot-com crash. And we weren't a dot-com. This was 2001, so the internet was still fairly new. And there it was. And we built this thing that was all over the world, and we're going after some capital because we put in a lot and we had private investors, friends and family. It didn't happen.
Wow. Scary.
It was, I'd had 20 some odd years of blessed success, again, with great partners and allies and employees and remarkable clients. But, there you are.
That didn't matter.
It didn't matter. No, it didn't matter. And there you were. You wake up one day and you say, that's interesting. So what does it look like to start over?
Wow. So kind of following that journey along to bringing us to where we are today, how did you and why did you come up with the idea for Discover Your Talent and obviously the Discover Your Talent podcast that you host?
Well, there are no accidents, right? And so many years later, as I did some other things in the interim and had some good successes, but many years later, I just got fascinated with the internet. I read Dharmesh Shah and Brian Halligan's great book, Inbound Marketing. This was in 2009, just an epical work. And in the ad business, we placed hundreds of millions of dollars of outbound advertising, right?
Yeah.
So I'm reading about this inbound concept in literally November 2009, and all these light bulbs went off. And I said, these guys have figured it out. A lot of people had, but they were at the forefront. So I just started investing time. Paul, I hate to admit this, it sounds a little bit compulsive, but over 4 or 5 years, I put in 1,500 hours of study, courses. I was consulting, and I just took course after course after course and learned from all the greats. And finally, when I saw the podcast niche after Serial series, what was that thing called? Serial?
Serial, yeah.
And it kept taking off, and then I saw Entrepreneur on Fire and the brilliant job that John and Kate have done with that. I said, if the key is content, and I'm a lifetime entrepreneur with a career planning focus as one of my entities, why don't we offer a show that addresses maybe the biggest problem that we all face, which is who am I and what am I supposed to do? And so that's what we did.
Wow, that's huge. And for our listeners that are looking to get into inbound marketing, in your opinion, why is inbound marketing so, especially coming from somebody that was in the ad space for so long, spending money to put ads in front of people, how have you seen inbound marketing kind of transform your business, and how can it transform other people's businesses?
Well, instead of having to, it's a perfect question. Instead of having to spend countless dollars outbound, and people still do ads and Google AdWords, and it's all still fine. But if you have a great idea, you could be a teacher out there in Dubuque or in Shanghai, and with not a lot of resources, or you could be a business person that doesn't have a lot of resources. If you have a great idea, and you can create basic content and offerings in all the modalities that you and your listeners know well, you can attract, get found with inbound. You can attract the audience who come to you for value instead of having to, quote, sell them something. And if you do that, the magnet is the best of who you are, whatever your talents are. You can attract an audience, build a list, and grow a business with, frankly, very modest investment.
Well said. And I was just talking to somebody before this. They were looking to get set up in podcasting, and a friend of mine who's also in the podcasting world, they said, well, how much does it cost to get a podcast up and running? And how much does it cost to keep it up and running? And really, I think, almost every resource other than your hosting is probably free. You can find a free resource to do pretty much everything. It's really just taking the time to produce that content, which another quote kind of falling in line with that is, what's normal and ordinary to you can be extraordinary to other people. And you're documenting, taking your experience, which a lot of podcasters do, which is what I do, take my experiences and share that with other people who are looking to learn. And it really does build that know, like, and trust factor. So how long has the Discover Your Talent podcast been going now?
Almost exactly 2 years. We just started we had the idea and we put it together and took the incredible Entrepreneur on Fire course that John and Kate had put together, and all our marketing experience. We put it together, and it's been rolling nicely. I want to say one thing about a previous point that you made, because to entrepreneurs out there, because the technological side is vitally important. This internet is beyond genius. But the part, even Bill Gates, who's a technological genius, said 15 years ago, content is everything. And so it's not enough to get the technological side down. That's complex. But if you don't have an idea that resonates in the hearts and minds and souls of your target audience, your avatar, it won't work. It won't work. I mean, it sounds obvious, but there's so many ideas out there that are half-baked, and they wonder why they don't monetize. Gee, I've got this right. I've got a website. I've got a podcast. No, you've got to have the answers to questions that are at the center of people's lives.
So true. And I think, a lot of people that I talk with, you deal with it every day too. People are like, oh, I got a great idea. I want to start a business, but somebody else is already doing that. And when I hear them tell me that, I'm like, that's great, because that proves that there's already an appetite for that. And there's plenty of room out there for another person to enter that market. So I think
that couldn't be more true. In the old days, way back when we were doing advertising, you just had, relatively speaking, fewer competitors in a niche because it cost millions of dollars to do a national brand. I'll never forget, early on in the HubSpot experience 7 or 8 years ago, there was a blogger in Texas that talked about the good prairie life and down home living off the grid. And after a couple of years, she had more. Listen to this. She had more subscribers to her blog than the New York Times had subscribers.
And somebody living almost off the grid in the middle of Texas. Yeah. And that's really the power of, that's the power of the internet and leveraging it to your idea. And if, like you said, if it's not a half-baked idea and there's other people doing it, it's proof that you might be onto something. So kind of digging into what your normal day is like now. Obviously you're helping other people, coaching them through their careers of success and all that satisfaction and freedom. What is kind of the day-to-day life of Don these days?
Well, it's interesting. We have a tight little staff of a handful of people, and up until recently, as I told you before the interview, we were doing so many interviews, and there was, you want to have a backlog of a couple of months, that we spent a lot of time searching out the right kinds of guests and getting them on the show and preparing them for the show and everything, doing the interviews, and then doing the website. And of course, social media. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, and we're on LinkedIn. So that was all consuming. Now at this point, we've got such a good backlog and a good team that the next part of this, so we do spend a certain amount of time on that, and it's vital. We record a couple of days a week. But the part now that we're working on, as I mentioned, is moving into the other modalities of membership sites and courses, because we got all this wisdom and knowledge after all these years. Let's talk about the problem on the podcast, but then let's deliver solutions through experts, not us necessarily, but experts from around the world, that can share modalities of helping you get to that next career transition point. So that's what we're setting up now. Membership side and courses, and working on webinars and so forth.
Very cool. And I think, it's proof that if you do believe in something, and obviously believe in your product, you believe in yourself, you believe in what you're doing, you've been doing it for 2 years, and now you're just looking, a lot of people will see on social media that, this person went from 0 to 7 figures overnight and they turned into a millionaire overnight. And unfortunately, social media only shares those really, really cool things. They don't show someone putting in over 500 episodes in 2 years of podcasting to then just now use that as leverage to, really get into the bigger space of serving these people, like you said, in a membership area. So that's really inspiring, good stuff there. So obviously you coach them on freedom, which means you're all about freedom as well. So how do you balance your work life and serving your customers and clients and your listeners, as well as the freedom of Don's daily life?
Well, it's a vital question. I started way back then in my 20s, which was a few years ago. We don't have to go into that, but I started In fact, it's one of the books I'm going to recommend. I started delving into mindfulness. And I've always been an exercise nut, well, at least since I got into college, and I wasn't a jock or anything. But I really got into exercise. Then I started getting into meditation and mindfulness and just balance. Because in my opinion, the world has become, the best thing about the business world and the world at large is this amazing thing called the internet as far as the communication side, but it also stresses us out. And so I got into meditation and took Tai Chi and Aikido and yoga, and I still do those things. I mean, I don't do all those things, obviously, but I still meditate every day. I take a long walk in the sun to get my vitamin D up. And I just give myself time to breathe and relax and try to stay not just focused intently and using my brain, but just leaving my instincts open to let fresh ideas and fresh feelings and everything enter.
Excellent. And that's really a recurring theme as I continue to interview successful entrepreneurs and business owners and thought leaders. Everything comes back to taking care of yourself first before you try and take care of your customers, clients, listeners, whoever it is that you're serving on a daily basis. So whatever it is and whatever your thing is, definitely set time aside to do that before you go try and serve other people. Because if you can't take care of yourself, it's going to be pretty hard to take care of others.
I left out the key piece, which is diet, because we live in a world that one author calls where we eat food that's edible, food-like substances, not food. And I've been studying this one a long time, and it's a problem of epidemic proportions, not just the obesity issue, but the overabundance of sugar and processed foods. So I've been long time on an organic, actually just turned vegan about 2 years ago. So you don't have to be vegan to be healthy, but you do have to not eat processed foods to be healthy. So that's really an essential piece, and that and getting plenty of sleep.
There you go. Sleep, diet, take care of yourself, and then go serve your clients better than anybody. Couldn't have said it better myself, Mr. Don. So you're doing that for yourself. How do you help your show and your business and ventures called Discover Your Talent? So how do you help people discover and find their true talents?
Well, it's a perfect segue into the thank you for this thing that we're doing next. It's we did an ebook that we're reintroducing, and the first thing we say about the 12 things that highly successful people do, the first thing we say in the ebook is understand it's extremely complicated. And I'm sure of all your listeners out there, they're all snickering and saying, yeah, what else is new, dude? I can also promise you, just with great respect to every single listener, that they don't know how complicated. I've studied it for what, now 30 years. And the ways that we approach our education, life, and career, Paul, and have forever, is very one-trick pony. It's very piecemeal. Let's get a little coaching. Let's take an assessment. Let's journal. Okay, yes, all of the above and then more. It's not just a matter of having an idea, hey, I'll go to college and study this and then I'll go be an accountant. It's a matter of listening to that wee small voice and paying attention and separating yourself from the clutter of family, friends, and all the people that love you to know what's inside you. So we have courses that have been going on for tens of thousands of people have used them, and we're reintroducing those under this brand to help people work through in a very methodical and organic way with lots of feedback who they are and what they want. People talk about their why, right? Everybody talks about why. Well, the first question is, not surprisingly, your who. You can't get to your why if you don't have your who.
That's true.
Oh, I know who I am. Oh, really? Well, do you know how your values sync up with this goal or how your innate abilities? So there are many, many factors. And we just help people get to that with all these experts we've worked with over the years. And it's astonishing. We've done research on it. When you do this, even in corporations, the indices of balance and vision and connection and lower stress and more productivity, they just skyrocket.
Wow. Very exciting. So along with your starting to build this membership site out to serve these people with your team of experts, what are in the future plans for Don in the Discover Your Talent team?
Well, there's another niche that I won't go into right now, but I will tell you soon. There's another niche we want to serve that's underserved that we want to get into. And and then do the same thing, get the niche through podcasting, but also, as you well know, we just talked about it with the Zoom platform. We want to do the same thing on places like YouTube, because that's a different audience altogether than the podcast audience. And, we want to be interviewing experts from around the world that help all the people around the world that are on this journey understand either themselves or their strategies or the markets they're going into, or how to negotiate their salaries, and how to make the turning points. We go through 8 turning points in our lives, and at that moment, it's sort of a fruit basket. We reevaluate our values and goals and have to figure out what to do next. That midlife crisis that everybody talks about, we have those every handful of years on some level. So we want to offer content that addresses those in a meaningful way.
Wow, you're definitely taking the time to plan it out and looking at all different avenues and points of people's life, so they are, like you said, figuring out who they are before you figure out what your why is. I think that's a good question that probably not many people have ever posed. I think anybody that you mostly talk to say, well, if we want to figure out what you should do, it's really, what is your why? But if you don't know who you are, then you don't know what your why is. So,
more right. Gallup just came out with their study. They've done studies for 25 years with tens of millions of people. And in the 2017 study, guess what? The statistic, and this is a 211-page report, the statistic is still that over 68% of people, 68, are not engaged in their work.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I think it kind of goes back to what you said, and kind of what we've had at conversations before, is it's been like this way for so long. People are just following the path that most people tell you to do. Go to college, get a job, and then do that for 40 or 50 years. But if that's not who you are, but you're just doing it because everyone else is doing it, probably why 68% of the people are not engaged with what they're spending the most time on. If you're working 40 to 50 hours a week and it's not what you should be doing and not who you are, I'm not surprised that 68% are disengaged. And I'm guessing that number will only go up.
Well, it's 86% around the world. And and now corporations, when our parents' generations did that, you could stay at IBM for 30 years. Well, now people leave after a year or two.
Yeah.
Now the corporations are feverishly chasing potential employees because the way that the demographic is worked, there's a paucity of great talent. So not only is it vital that you understand who you are and your talents and have a personal vision and a strategy for yourself, but then the corporations want you to do that too, because if you work with them, you can find the best ways to, either in a profession or organization, to deploy yourself.
There you go. So with that being said, obviously with all the people you've worked with, all the studies you've done, all the businesses you have built, what is your ideal view of freedom, and how are you making sure you achieve that for you and for your the customers, clients, and listeners that you serve?
I wrote down long time ago at my second company, before a staff meeting, I want to create something out of nothing, and then I want to do 3 things. I want to do good, I want to have fun, and I want to make money. In that exact order. And I've, like I said, I've had some really, really wonderful successes I'm proud of. I've had a couple of things that didn't work out, but I stayed true to that concept throughout. And to me, that's the idea of just being the best of who you are and getting the most out of this experience we call life.
Wow. Do good, have fun, make money. Very simple, yet very powerful. And I think if you do good and you're having fun and you believe in what you're doing, the money will come. If you put the money first, there's not going to be fun and there's not going to be doing good, because you're going to put the money in front of the client's best interest or your best interest, or your family's best interest. But if you put those first 2 first, that is pretty powerful stuff. So that is awesome insight. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Don, as you know, all good things do come to an end. After all, we are all about freedom on the show, so we don't want to take up too much of your time down there in Charleston or our listeners' time. But before we sign off, it is time for our rapid recommendations for all things related to systems, automation, and freedom. So I've got 6 topics here. You're going to give our listeners one thing that they should check out or listen to within those topics to get them one step closer to that freedom. So give us your best book recommendation.
Well, I've got 2. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle which has been out in 2001, and then Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And both books are about consciousness and getting that square one part of yourself figured out.
Awesome. We'll definitely be sure to link both those books up in the show notes. What about one quote?
I like what Einstein said. Logic is a powerful tool, and intuition is a sacred gift. We live in a society that worships at the altar of the tool and disregards the gift.
That is true. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the intuition, and you should trust that when you got it. So well said. What about one tool that you like to use?
You know, there's so many tools out there. This is really funny. In the world of internets, actually the tools I use the most, this is really going to flip the listeners out, are paper and pencil.
There you go. I got mine right here. So
yes.
Some things, and I find that when I do write them down, it sticks with me more. I don't know, it just resonates more than if I'm just typing it. I use Evernote for a lot of things, but
you know why? You know why, don't you?
Tell me.
It's kinesthetic. It's bodily kinesthetic. When you write it down, and I've got just all kinds of files and things here, but when you write it down, there's a connection. I'm not a scientist, but there's a connection with your body and everything. When you write it down, it goes into your system better.
There you go. And in my former life, I taught kids how to play golf and tennis, and we found out that they learn 3 ways: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. So what you just said makes total sense. What about one podcast that you listen to on a regular basis?
You know what? There's so many podcasts that I like, and oh gosh, you know, I like Bruce Langford's Mindfulness Mode.
Very cool. Bruce is a good man. He's also part of the Podcasters Paradise world. So definitely check out his podcast. We'll link that up in the show notes. What about one community that you like to hang out in, either in person or online?
That's so interesting. There's so many good ones. I guess, you know, as simple as this is, I guess I enjoy the Podcasters Paradise because I like seeing today's rate and review day in Podcasters Paradise, right?
Yep.
So there's several thousand people in that community, and I just like seeing new podcasters come up like yourself who get in that community, and then you have a chance to listen to their shows and give feedback, and they critique your show. And I think it's just a fun experience, and it's great rubbing shoulders with that many other creative people.
Totally agree. So yeah, Podcasters Paradise, if you're not familiar, John Lee Dumas has put together a membership community for people that are interested in podcasting, doing podcasting. And it's a great just support community. So whatever you're looking to do, I would definitely recommend getting into a community that is doing the similar things to you. So that way you can get that support and learn from people all over the world. What about one parting piece of advice for any business owner out there who is stuck, burned out, or just trying to get over the hump?
One word. Stop.
There you go. If you want to learn,
you want to know about that?
Let's hear it.
It's right there in The Power of Now and in Flow with Csikszentmihalyi. Until we shut down this massive thing called our brain and breathe and get away from our job, our relationships, our pets, and can be quiet, those limitless lessons and instincts inside of us can't come to the surface. So even if you do it for 15 minutes a day, or you take a walk by yourself without your cell phone or your iPad, that is, in my opinion anyway, that's where the real answers come.
That is great advice. Couldn't be more simple, but yet so powerful. So Don Hutcheson, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to impart some of your knowledge, wisdom, and enthusiasm to our community. Hopefully this helps everyone out there get one step closer to achieving ultimate freedom in their business and in life. But before we sign off, where can our listeners go to keep in touch with you?
They can go to discoveryourtalentpodcast.com. There's a contact piece there. They can drop us a note. We'd love to hear from them, especially with these upcoming membership sites. They can go to Discover Your Talent Podcast Facebook and see all the shows listed with the little montages. They can go to Twitter, Don Hutcheson11. They can go to LinkedIn, Don Hutcheson, Discover Your Talent. All those places we'd love to connect with them.
Awesome. So we'll definitely be sure to link all that up in the show notes, just in case you are not with a pen and paper or a computer or device to type that in. So discoveryourtalentpodcast.com. If you want to hang out with Don on Facebook, facebook.com/discoveryourtalentpodcast, or on Twitter, Don Hutcheson11. And great resources there to really figure out who you are and what the next step should be in your journey. And definitely check out the podcast. So that is all the time we have for today. Don, thanks again for spending some time with our listeners. Definitely, I got a lot out of it, so I know that others will as well. So wanted to say thanks there. And for everyone else out there, stay tuned for next week's episode as we dive into another fantastic interview with Stephen Wassner from Onward Nation. And if you like what you're hearing, we'd always appreciate a friendly review, subscribe, or share it with your friends. So until next time, don't forget to join our free Facebook group, bizfreedomformula.com, where we can continue the conversation with like-minded entrepreneurs who are also listening to the show and putting those plans in place to work less, make more, while achieving ultimate freedom and increasing the value of their business along the way. Don, thanks again for spending some time with us.
It was a great pleasure. I wish you all the best and continuing success.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. We'll be sure to stay in touch. And for everybody else out there, keep rocking, trust the process, and talk to you soon.